The world teaches that action must always be physical, that results only come through effort and hard labor. But the deeper truth is that all outer change is born from inner movement. It is not the work of your hands, but the motion of your awareness that creates. When you shift your consciousness, when you rise into a new assumption of self, you are moving the only thing that matters, and this movement, though invisible, is the cause of everything you call experience. To move in consciousness is to change your self-concept, to assume a new identity regardless of what your five senses report. If you can imagine yourself into a new state, if you can feel the reality of that state and abide in it, you have already taken the most powerful action there is. It may look like you're doing nothing to others, but within you have shifted timelines. You have opened the door to a different sequence of events that must unfold around you to reflect that inner movement. This is not idle daydreaming. It is deliberate, conscious occupancy of a new reality. When you enter into a state of abundance, love, or success in your imagination and feel it deeply, you are not waiting for life to bring it. You are generating it now. Every event, every person, every outcome you encounter thereafter will be molded to match the new state you inhabit. Outer effort without this inner shift is struggle, but inner movement, changing what you accept as true, produces the outer effortlessly. This is why those who seem to do less often achieve more. It is not what they do, but who they are being in imagination that matters. Reality obeys the one who first moves within. Creation does not respond to effort, it responds to assumption. The world may reward toil and hustle with applause, but the true source of all manifestation lies in the unseen act of assuming a thing to be true. When you claim a desire mentally and emotionally, without the need to chase it, you are engaging in the highest form of creation. Assumption bypasses the uncertainty of external means and places you directly in the state where your desire is already fulfilled. To assume is not to hope, nor is it to merely think positively. It is to know inwardly that what you desire already exists. You feel it real. You saturate your imagination with the scene that would be true if your desire were already a fact. This inner act becomes the seed planted in the subconscious, and from it the entire outer world must conform. You may not know the sequence of how it will unfold, but you no longer need to. The assumption contains the power and wisdom to shape its own path. Most people believe that action must precede fulfillment, but the reverse is true in spiritual law. Fulfillment begins with assumption. When you live from the end, when you no longer seek something outside yourself, but dwell in the feeling of already having it, life reorganizes itself. People, opportunities, and circumstances are drawn to match the new state you have claimed. This is the effortless path. The power lies not in how much you do, but in how deeply you assume. Assumption is not pretending. It is possession, and when you assume the possession of your desire, you no longer chase. You no longer wait, you are, and from that inner knowing, everything flows with ease, precision, and perfect timing. To do nothing does not mean apathy or indifference. It means entering a state so completely that you no longer strive to make it happen. You rest in the end in the full acceptance that your desire is already yours. This rest is not physical stillness, though it may appear that way on the surface. It is the cessation of inner resistance, the dissolving of doubt, and the quiet confidence of having already arrived. When you live in the end, your every thought, mood, and reaction flows from that fulfilled place. Resting in the end is a spiritual decision, a choice to no longer entertain the old state. You cease reacting to appearances, cease needing proof, and instead return again and again to the inner scene where all is accomplished. You are no longer trying to make it real. You know it is real because you feel it. Your imagination becomes the only world you respond to, and the external must bow to that inner authority. This rest is not passive. It is powerful. It is the foundation of true creation. While others chase and strive, you anchor yourself in the unseen. You live from the desired state as if it were already here, and by doing so, you invite the outer world to mirror that truth. It cannot help but do so, for the outer is always compelled to reflect the inner assumption. This resting is the key to effortless manifestation. There is no more effort to attract what is already yours. There is no struggle in being. All striving ends the moment you decide to live from the end. The world may see you doing nothing, but within you are moving mountains. You are aligning with the deeper law that governs all things, the law that answers not to effort, but to assumption. The secret to getting everything by doing nothing lies in the understanding that imagination is not a passive escape. It is the creative force itself. When you dwell persistently in the state of your fulfilled desire within your imagination, you are engaging in the highest form of action. You are instructing the subconscious, which governs the flow of events, to produce experiences that correspond to the state you have inwardly assumed. Nothing else is required. The outer world does not lead, it follows the inner. To imagine vividly and consistently is to give birth to form. The act may appear invisible, silent, and still to the outside world, but it carries more creative power than all the outward effort combined. What you accept as true in your imagination defines your world. If you imagine lack, struggle, or limitation, you breathe life into those realities. But if you imagine wealth, love, and freedom, and do so with feeling and conviction, then those things must take form in your experience. This is the art of allowing, not pushing, not forcing, but accepting the reality of the unseen. When you imagine from the end, from the fulfillment of your wish, you eliminate the need to worry about how it will come to pass. That is not your concern. Your only role is to remain loyal to that imaginal act. Your persistence in assumption draws the bridge of incidents that will naturally and effortlessly unfold to make the invisible visible. You don't need to run after the manifestation. You only need to claim it internally. Let imagination do the work. Trust that the unseen reality you dwell in will harden into fact. The quiet work of the imagination is not idleness. It is divine action. And in this action, all things are made possible. The world you see is not the cause of your experience. It is the effect. To change the effect, you must shift the cause, and the cause is always found within. Doing nothing in the outer sense means withdrawing your energy from trying to fix, control, or manipulate external conditions, and instead turning your focus inward, where the true work begins. This inner shift, though subtle and often ignored by the world, is the axis upon which all reality turns. When you cease reacting to appearances, you free yourself. The moment you understand that outer conditions are merely the reflections of past inner assumptions, you stop giving them power. You no longer beg reality to change. You no longer complain, worry, or argue with what is. Instead, you rise above it, dwelling in the unseen world of your fulfilled desire. This detachment is not cold or careless. It is the powerful recognition that you are the operant power. By doing nothing, you are not avoiding life, you are mastering it. You choose not to chase shadows. You refuse to feed energy into states you no longer wish to experience. You act from the place where your desire is already true. The feelings, thoughts, and behaviors that flow from that assumption begin to shape the outer world effortlessly. You become aligned and life becomes cooperative. To the world, it appears as if you are idle, but in truth, you are active on the only level that matters. You are assuming your desire as real. You are feeling it, living in it, becoming it. And from that inner certainty, everything must rearrange. The world is not your master. It is your mirror. Change the image you hold within, and the reflection must follow. This is the power of doing nothing in the outer and everything within. Doing nothing is a surrender, but not to defeat, to fulfillment. It is the surrender of willful striving, of anxious effort, of trying to force reality into shape. It is the quiet decision to no longer battle with appearances, but to rest in the knowing that the unseen world, once assumed and felt as true, must express itself in time. This is not about laziness, it is about precision. You are directing your energy with exactness, not scattered across countless actions, but focused within a single imaginal act. That inner act is sacred. It is where your future is shaped. To assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled is to plant the seed in consciousness. Once the seed is planted, your work is to keep it alive, not by digging it up through doubt or fear, but by watering it with faith, attention, and inner alignment. You remain in the state of the fulfilled desire, not occasionally, not conditionally, but faithfully, regardless of what the senses say. This faith is not blind. It is based on spiritual law. You know that what is real in imagination will manifest in form. Therefore, you allow the outer world to move at its own pace while you hold fast to the inner vision. This patience is not passive. It is creative. You are building a bridge of incidents through your assumption. You are magnetizing people, events, and circumstances that must come, not because you forced them, but because you became the version of yourself who naturally receives them. In stillness, you become more powerful than in motion. By assuming the state, by feeling it deeply and consistently, you do everything required. The action may be invisible, but the results are not. They must appear, not because you chased them, but because you dared to remain in the end. Doing nothing in its highest form is the boldest act of faith you can express. It means you no longer wait for signs to believe, but believe first, and let the signs follow. The world teaches you to respond, to react, to hustle, to chase. But spiritual law reverses this. You respond internally, and the world conforms. You move first in imagination, and then, if necessary, outer movement becomes inspired, effortless, and aligned with your assumed end. When you fully accept that your imagination is the only creative force, you stop seeking validation from the outside world. You are no longer moved by delays, denials, or contradictions. Why? Because you are not living according to what the senses dictate. You are living according to what you have seen, felt, and accepted within. You do not need things to happen to feel fulfilled. You feel fulfilled, and then things must happen. This inner stillness is not weakness. It is clarity. You are not being passive. You are being precise. You are no longer wasting energy on doubt, fear, or contradiction. You are remaining faithful to the vision. You are embodying the end result with such conviction that nothing outside of you can shake it. The outside may scream not yet, but the inside knows already done. That knowing is the foundation of true creation. To the outside world, it may look like you're doing nothing, but within, mountains are moving. You are impressing the subconscious with your desire, dressed as reality. That impression becomes expression. That inner reality becomes outer fact, all because you dared to rest, not in idleness, but in truth. You held the assumption and refused to waver. That is the only doing required, to remain in the state, to live from the end, and allow the unseen hand to orchestrate the rest. Doing nothing is the art of occupying the state of already having. It is the disciplined refusal to interfere with what has already been accepted in consciousness. When you truly dwell in the end, There is no anxiety, no need to act prematurely, no compulsion to explain or prove anything to anyone. You are not trying to get something. You are being the one who already has it. That identity, assumed internally, reshapes the world around you without strain. The outer world is delayed in response to inner movement. So, when you change your state of consciousness, the physical world follows on its own time. To interfere, to doubt, to begin acting out of desperation or fear. These are ways of digging up the seed before it can sprout. But to do nothing, in the higher sense, is to hold your position. It is to remain in the feeling of fulfillment, even when there's no evidence, especially when there's no evidence, for that is where faith is forged. You become unshakable, not because you have control over circumstances, but because you no longer need to control them. You know they are reflections, not causes. So instead of trying to change them, you maintain the assumption that the change is already done. You wake up in the morning and walk as the one who already possesses. You move through the day silently clothed in the reality of your fulfilled desire. No one sees the shift, but all will witness the result. This is the power of unseen creation. While others run in circles, driven by effort and resistance, you rest in the truth of having already received. From this stillness, action arises naturally and correctly, if needed at all. Until then, you rest in the silence of conviction. That is not laziness, that is mastery. When you come to truly understand that imagination creates reality, you will see that all outward striving is secondary. The real cause lies within. Doing nothing, then, is not the absence of intention. It is the placement of all intention where it actually matters, within your own consciousness. You relinquish the need to push, to force, to manipulate. Instead, you internalize your desired outcome so fully that the outer world becomes a mirror to your inner certainty. This is the meaning of living from the end. You inhabit the outcome. You feel the reality of it so vividly that you no longer care when or how it arrives, because inwardly it already has. That internal fulfillment sends out a silent signal, drawing into your experience all that matches your new identity. This drawing in is not by effort, but by alignment. You are no longer chasing results. You are allowing them to unfold naturally, compelled by the law of assumption. In this state, time becomes your ally, not your enemy. You are no longer anxious about the delay, because you understand that the world rearranges itself slowly to match your inner state. Every moment you dwell in the fulfillment, you are amplifying its magnetic pull. You are not idle. You are faithfully imagining, and that is the highest form of creation. Others may see your stillness and mistake it for inaction. Let them. They do not see the fire burning within, the conviction that transforms. Your work is not to convince anyone, nor to explain yourself, but to persist in the assumption until it hardens into fact. You do not need signs to believe. Belief is the sign. And through this inner knowing, through the sacred act of doing nothing, you allow the miraculous to become mundane and the unseen to become inevitable. To do nothing in the truest spiritual sense is to relinquish all resistance. It is to remove yourself from the mental habit of trying to make things happen and instead rest in the assurance that they already have. The moment you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you have done everything required. Anything beyond that, worry, planning, manipulation, is an expression of doubt. True stillness is not apathy, but pure alignment. It is saying yes inwardly and refusing to betray that yes through external anxiety. You may feel tempted to check for results, to ask how long it will take, or to seek validation from the world. But these are the very thoughts that delay manifestation. They declare, I do not yet have, and so the world reflects back more of that lack. The key is to hold the inner vision with such consistency that your external conditions lose their power to affect you. You are no longer living from the outside in. You are centered within, and the world must follow. Doing nothing also means not interfering with the process once it is set in motion. The same way a seed planted in soil must be left undisturbed to grow, your assumption must be left alone, nurtured only by faith. This is a discipline, a daily practice of choosing the unseen over the visible, the inner over the outer, the real over the reflection. You hold your ground in imagination, and that firmness becomes form. There will come a point where you will look around and realize everything has changed, without struggle, without force, without you doing anything in the conventional sense, because the greatest act of doing is being. When you are being the person who has already received, life arranges itself to match that inner stance. To do nothing is to allow your assumption to breathe. Many disrupt the process by trying to help it along, unaware that such help is rooted in disbelief. When you truly believe that your desire is already fulfilled, you do not look for evidence. You do not attempt to force the outcome. You allow it. This allowance is not passive. It is the highest form of confidence. You become one who walks in quiet dominion, knowing that the unseen precedes the seen. Imagination, when saturated with feeling, begins the gestation of your desire. But like any seed planted in the soil, it requires stillness and trust to bring forth fruit. If you plant a seed and constantly dig it up to see if it is growing, you destroy its chance of blooming. The same is true with your inner work. Your job is not to meddle with how or when, but to remain loyal to the end you have assumed. In this loyalty, you become stable, not emotionally tossed by appearances, not frantically shifting states, but rooted. You understand that the delay is not denial. It is simply the unfolding of what already is. The world bends slowly, at times imperceptibly, toward your internal assumption. You remain faithful not by striving, but by being still in the truth you have accepted. And it is in this stillness that miracles happen, not because you begged for them, but because your assumption became your reality. You were not chasing results. You were abiding in your new identity. The outer world has no choice but to conform. This is not superstition. It is law. All life springs from within. And when you cease all resistance, all grasping, and simply rest in what is already yours, the invisible begins its journey into form without effort, without force, through the quiet power of your faith. Doing nothing also means surrendering your addiction to outer effort as the source of change. For too long, you have been taught to believe that action alone produces results, that movement, planning, and struggle are the only roads to success. But what if all of that was merely a reflection, not a cause? What if action is the echo of belief, not its origin? To get everything by doing nothing is to withdraw your power from action and return it to its true source, your inner state. You are not rewarded for how much you do. You are rewarded for what you are. You are not blessed because you hustle, but because you dare to feel yourself already in possession of the thing you desire. That feeling, that quiet and invisible knowing, is the cause. Action, when it comes, should be inspired, not panicked, not forced. It should emerge naturally as a consequence of your inner shift, not as an attempt to produce it. This approach redefines your relationship to effort. You no longer act to get something. You act because you already have it. The action becomes effortless, joyful, precise, and in some cases, no action is needed at all. The bridge of incidents unfolds without your help. People move, circumstances change, opportunities arrive, all seemingly unrelated, yet perfectly orchestrated, not by your planning, but by your assumption. This is how everything is received without strain. You shift within, and the world shifts around you. You claim the reality internally, and it finds you. You no longer chase, strive, or worry. You simply remain faithful to the unseen, and the unseen becomes seen. The outer life rearranges to match the inner conviction, not because you did something to earn it, but because you finally did nothing to resist it.